Hi there everyone. I know it's been a while since I made a YouTube video, so I wanted to get back on it while I had a little bit of a break. My new life is a little bit hectic, so it's taken some time to get adjusted to. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and I was actually asked by someone on Facebook to discuss this, is anti-vaxxers and the reasons why they're against vaccines. I have a lot of disdain for people who are against vaccinations for various reasons. One of those being that it's dangerous not only to themselves but to the general public at hand. Vaccines were created a few hundred years ago. Louis Pasteur was actually the one who invented the very first vaccines. He independently discovered microbes apart from Van Leeuwenhoek. So it took him a while to procure vaccines. He had to understand that it was microbes causing whatever ailment, and he had to understand that they had to be dead and introduced to the system before it could be beneficial to the person. You can introduce diminished capacity viruses to the human immune system, however you take the chance of it not being quite as effective. I know that a lot of anti-vaxxers are against part of the chemicals that are in vaccines, and I want to address that because I think that there is a lot of bullocks going on in the community at large over things that they don't understand. The mercury contained in a vaccine is simply there to aid in the control and stability of a vaccine. Basically, what I want you to understand is that the levels of chemical in the vaccine are low enough that it's not going to be toxic. And one of the things, the scare tactics that is used, is it's said that vaccines can cause autism. Not only is that being disproven by study after study, but it's being proven what is actually the culprit for autism, and that tends to be genetics as well as environment and other factors. So it's not the mercury that's in your vaccine, but should you want to believe that, which is absolutely ludicrous, there are numerous studies that you can find simply by looking it up on the internet which contradict that kind of thinking. So if you want to believe that, well, then you have to believe that every time you feed your child fish, that the likelihood of you giving them autism is greater, because there are greater levels of mercury in certain types of fish than there are actually in the vaccines that are injected into your child. So when you're done with dinner and you've fed your child fish sticks thinking that you've done something great for their brain, you have to feel a little guilty if after dinner they come up with autism, which doesn't happen. Autism is a developmental disability and it's a disease. I know from personal experience because I have a child with it. Its onset has unfortunate timing, which is equal to the time when children receive their last set of booster vaccines. This is unfortunate, but it is true. And sometimes autism has signs that we clearly haven't learned to look for in younger children. So even though you may see those full-blown symptoms around the same age, the likelihood is there were symptoms that you never knew to look for at a younger age. Another point that I want to make to anti-vaxxers is the danger that you pose to society in general, because you do. We had almost eradicated things like mumps and chicken pox and things that were on the cusp of being eliminated from society in whole. I was one of the people who was lucky enough to never have suffered measles or mumps. Those are making a comeback. That is thanks to you, anti-vaxxers. You are responsible for the devastation of a population, basically because you're irresponsible. You aren't educated. You don't know what you're talking about. And even some people who are geniuses are uneducated in some areas. Nobody is brilliant in every area. So I just want you to understand that by not vaccinating your child, you not only expose them to the possibility of having it, you expose them to the possibility of death from having it. Those of us who have been vaccinated and continue to be vaccinated for various things are less likely to get it, if we do get it, we are less likely to suffer the horrific impact of it. And the thing is, I think that that's part of the problem, is that we have gotten too complacent. Things have been too easy for our society, and so you say, well, I'm going to take the chances because the chances are that my child will survive. Pre-vaccination protocol, there were thousands of children dying every year from these childhood diseases. Post-vaccine protocol, there were a few hundred down to a few. The difference is significant. So what you're saying is you would like to take the chance that it is your child who can survive a childhood disease, when what we know is at one point a majority of people did not survive these diseases. In fact, over half of Europe was devastated by these before vaccines ever existed. So you're taking the chances of rolling the dice. Now, you may think, well, you know, I stem from a survivor of those diseases, so maybe there's some immune probability there, and that's not true, because every child has a different set of genetics. That's like 1% of actual Africans, ancestral Africans, have an immunity to HIV based upon a protein that they cannot build for HIV. So they can carry it, but they can't actually become infected by it. The likelihood of that being your child, that 1%, is just that, 1%. The rest of you, 99%, who think that not doing vaccines is not harmful to your children, you're not right, and you can definitely harm your child, and children are dying from this. There are currently children being hospitalized and dying from the onset of this disease factor, again, because of parental irresponsibility, because of them rolling the dice. And some of those children who are being affected highly are still children who had parents sensible enough to get vaccines. So you pose a threat to the majority of us. And you know what? I fail to understand how you would not let your child play in the street, how you would want everything else the best for your child, but when it comes to vaccines, you think that the scientific community would lie to you. The science has no reason to lie or manipulate or harm your child in any way. It's not a governmental plot. It's not a ploy. It's called herd health and herd immunity. And unfortunately, like it or lump it, we exist in societies which are equal to a herd. The more people that are immune to more diseases, the more healthy the quote-unquote herd is. The less people that are immune and healthy, the more likely it is for potential mass disease outbreaks. That we see this every year with the flu. And yet thousands of people tell me that they don't want to get the flu vaccine because they don't think it works, or they think that it's just a government ploy to control your mind. If the government wanted to control your mind, I'm pretty sure they could do it better than a vaccine. Science has worked very diligently on these vaccines and to try to make sure that the public in general is safe. And we test that efficacy. We test the amount of viral agent that you can take in your body. We know the amount needed to create immunity. We know how long the immune antibodies will stay in your system. We know when you need a booster. We know when you're most susceptible to getting these childhood diseases. We know what comes of it. We know everything about this because we've had to learn it. To combat disease factor, you have to understand the disease, what causes the disease, and everything around it. And you also have to understand the vaccine that you're about to give people, because the one thing is that you don't want to cause death or harm, because that does no good. That doesn't aid the community in anything if you're harming them more than helping them. We already know this. And scientists have morals. We have a system of values. What we wouldn't want for our own family, we wouldn't want for you. So you really have to think about what you're saying to us when you say, well, scientists are trying this and that and the other. The mercury is the major point that I've heard, which seems ludicrous to me, because there are probably more chemicals in your Lunchables than there are in one vaccine that you're going to give your child. So you think about that. You're complaining about the chemicals in something that has the potential to save your child's life, but you don't complain about the chemicals in something that you're going to feed your child and think that you're giving them a healthy lunch. You know, the hypocrisy is there. Even if it did cause autism to give vaccines to children, the likelihood that it's your child is very little. There are not a significant number of children coming up with autism. We have learned to recognize autism, signs of autism, onset of autism, and that has made a big difference. We also, you know, we are rolling our dice as a society by keeping everyone alive. We know that. So if you want to say to me that we're seeing more of this, that, and the other in our societies, well, that's because we no longer commit infanticide. We are not like the Greeks in that we don't take babies who are born deformed out and put them in jars and leave them in the desert. We don't snap their necks. We don't do what used to be done with imperfect children. We let them be born. We raise them. We take care of them. This puts more of a potential of ailments into our genetic pool, because obviously these people are living to adulthood, and we don't tell them that they can't procreate. We look down upon procreation among severely mentally handicapped people, but those with genetic abnormalities, we just say, okay, it's their life. So what you're looking at when you say, well, there's been an increase, blah, 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 is that we are a good-hearted society. We don't live in Darwinism. We don't let only the most fittest survive. We take care of everyone in our society. Well, potentially. So we don't eliminate specific genes from our gene pool, which means that they are passed on. So when it comes to those genes being harmful to the next generation of offspring, they are passed on regardless of what they are.